the Battle of the Gamecocks. For the first time ever in college football history, Gamecocks and Gamecocks will square off on the field, this being the first season that JSU is an FBS competition. Certainly that hasn't stopped them from making headlines. We all recall a couple of years ago, this is a team that went in to Tallahassee and beat Florida State, which goes to show you how crazy it is and how much things change so rapidly, so quickly in college football. Now you look at Florida State, what they're doing. But Jacksonville State comes in, and this is one, guys, that's interesting. Forever it's like we've seen JSU. You've recognized, okay, there's another Gamecocks out there. They exist. But to see them actually do battle on the field, the headlines are going to be phenomenal. They're going to be classic from the big J journos and the media guys and the newspapers, even the online publications, what have you. And I'll try to refrain from too many puns or too much fun stuff when it comes to talking about this game. But either way, Gamecocks and Gamecocks, it's an SEC Conference USA matchup. And guys, it honestly reminds me somewhat of the Georgia State game to kick off last year from the standpoint of just the type of team that I see Jacksonville State as. Again, this is their first year at FBS, but they've been a really good FCS program. And you look at the makeup of their team, right? They've got a running quarterback who's a veteran player, not necessarily a lethal passer, but can run the football. They rely on the running game. They got a great pass rush, solid defense, and a challenge for South Carolina. So I think it's going to be a really fun game. And guys, I think it's going to be a notable first battle of the Gamecocks. And by the way, guys, how can we not mention this? It's a reunion. Steve Spurrier and company honoring the 2009, I believe, the 2013 teams, maybe 2010 to 2013. Either way, honoring Steve Spurrier and the greatest run in Gamecocks football history. So there's a lot of festivities happening along with this game on Saturday, guys. And I mentioned the return to Willie B. Back home to the friendly confines. Guys, the home and road splits. There isn't a team in college football who is more happy to be playing a home game than I think South Carolina is. Because you look at these home and road splits, it is crazy. And I know the competition has been better on the road. I totally get that. And there's only been 3 home games. You look at who they're against: Furman, Mississippi State, and Florida. But still, guys, South Carolina at home, and these stats are courteous of our good friend Jamie Bradford, JB of Inside the Gamecocks, the Big Spur. South Carolina at home, averaging 41 points per game. 41 points per game at Williams-Brice Stadium. On the road, 16 points per game. And I don't have the stats pulled up right in front of me, but, I mean, those splits, guys, they span everything from the production of the running game to the receivers to, of course, Spencer Rattler. I don't have his home and road splits pulled up in front of me, but I mean, he's been a drastically different player away from Willie B. And that brings me to this, guys. When you look at this game, and if South Carolina is going to close out this season, if they're going to go 4-0, they're going to get to 6-6, they're going to get to bowl eligibility. Spencer Rattler, it goes without saying, has to be a major part of it. And it starts this weekend. Does he return to form? Right? Because, again, the home and road splits, been a completely different player away from Williams-Brice Stadium. Even in the loss to Florida, guys, he was fantastic. Absolutely brilliant. He's been nothing short of brilliant in all of those home contests. I mean, the completion percentage is through the roof. I think it's over 80%. If South Carolina is going to make any sort of run to close out this season, if they're even going to potentially sniff going 4-0 in the final 4 games, it starts with Spencer Rattler. And it starts with Spencer Rattler going out there against JSU and putting together the Spencer Rattler performance at home that we're used to seeing. Then go out there against Vandy, do it again. Then you've built up momentum. Then you've built up confidence. And now you go into Kentucky and Clemson feeling a little bit differently about yourself. But getting Spencer Rattler back to form, returning him to that peak form, that elite form we saw, that we've seen in the 3 home games this year, critical for South Carolina, not just this weekend, but for the remainder of the season. Guys, also, you look at this game, what's the status of Xavier Legette? He was on the field against Texas A&M, but was he really on the field? I mean, that Xavier Legette was not himself in that football game. And we heard late last week, obviously, was dealing with a concussion issue, concussion protocol, and I guess he obviously cleared everything and was good to go, but he just did not look himself. Looked to step off, if you will. Do we see Xavier Legette get back to the form that we're all used to seeing? Do we see him return to form along with Spencer Rattler? Because, guys, for a while, Xavier Legette was the best wide receiver in not just the SEC, but college football, right? So getting him going, the number of weapons you have on the offensive side, it's not a plethora, right? You don't just have tons of playmakers. And so, again, Xavier Legette's another guy that if you're going to get on a run, build some confidence, you really need to get Xavier Legette going. Guys, sticking with the wide receiver position, the offensive side, it's not a matter of if. It's a matter of when Nicholas Harbor has his breakout game for the Gamecocks. You see him sort of ramping up, right, guys? And in the preseason, we talked about it. We expected that the midway point would be when you'd start seeing Nicholas Harbor get more acclimated to playing the wide receiver position and start making plays. And, of course, that led to last week, 6 catches for 59 yards. The 100-plus yard performance and a couple of touchdowns, it's coming. I don't know if it's this weekend against Jacksonville State. I don't know if it's against Vanderbilt. Maybe it's against Kentucky or Clemson. Who knows? But this feels like a great opportunity, especially you look at the Jacksonville State passing defense. That's allowing around 230 yards per game. There's going to be opportunities for big plays in the passing game. And again, it's not a matter of if. It's a matter of when Nicholas Harbor has his breakout performance over 100 yards, a couple of touchdowns. I very well think it could be this weekend. Guys, switching sides of the ball. Some people disagreed, I should say. Some people disagreed with me when I said that I saw encouraging things from the Gamecocks defense in College Station. I thought there were things to take away from that game, and you could carry over the Final Four contest. People say, Chris, what are you talking about? Did you watch the game? Guys, you have to understand where the bar is. You have to understand where the expectations are for the South Carolina defense. So the fact that the Gamecocks were able to generate 3 sacks of Max Johnson, and the fact it didn't look as easy as it's looked for so many opponents. I mean, guys, that was a win, I thought. That was a win, truly. I thought you saw a much more swarming defense, attacking defense. We heard last week that there were maybe going to be some different voices, kind of a Marcus Satterfield situation where different voices have their input on things going on, and that was the case on the defensive side. And guys, whether it was Clayton White just opened up more feedback and more input into the game plan, or maybe it was just totally somebody else calling the shots. Either way, it looked different to me. So do we see that again? Do we see an aggressive attacking defense, guys, especially in a game like this where for as good as Jacksonville State is, and I think they're a quality football team. I don't think this is a game where you just roll your helmet out there, you get the W. I think JSU is going to bring it to South Carolina. They're led by Rich Rodriguez, who's a phenomenal offensive mind, has done great work in his time as a head coach. They're going to be ready. They're going to have a good game plan ready to go. This is a game, though, again, you feel like for the entire football team, that includes the defense, where you feel like you can build some confidence. You can have some successes. You can have some wins. You can have some victories. And if you're able to stack those on top of each other, who knows what may happen down the stretch. So is it a defense that looks like it's aggressive, attacking again, looks more like what we saw against Texas A&M versus what we saw previous of that game? Guys, on that note, South Carolina, their physicality, can they go toe-to-toe with a lethal JSU rushing attack? Guys, the rushing game is where JSU makes their money. This is where their bread and butter is running the football. Bottom line, their bread and butter is running the football. 211 yards per game. And like I mentioned, guys, it reminds me so much of what Georgia State was last year, where they were lethal in the rushing attack. South Carolina in that game, you might recall, gave up over 200 yards rushing. The good news is this. The Gamecocks, they're much better against the run. Granted, you look at the defensive numbers and say, okay, are you actually that much better? Is it because teams are throwing for 300 a game on you? But I do think that South Carolina has made positive strides in stopping the run. I'm not saying it's perfect. I'm not saying that South Carolina is incapable of giving up 200 yards rushing on Saturday, but I think they've made positive strides. But this is a JSU rushing attack similar to Georgia State last year where they rely on it, they lean on it, and guys, they've got a running quarterback, and they're going to run Zion Webb. They're going to run Zion Webb often. He's a seventh-year player. He's a veteran. Again, their running back is fantastic, one of the best in Conference USA. So this is going to be a JSU team. They're going to try to win with a running game. Despite what South Carolina's defensive numbers say, they say, hey, you should throw against this team. I fully expect Jacksonville State to try to establish the run, establish it early. What can South Carolina do? You would think the physicality of an SEC defensive line, you would think that physicality should shine through. We'll see if that's the case. Guys, going back to the offense, by the way, I didn't mention this, but I feel the need to do so. We're talking about line of scrimmage. This South Carolina offensive line, I mean, it's just been one injury after another after another. Now Trey Jones is out for this ball game. It does sound like Vershawn Lee may come back per our guys over at Inside the Gamecocks, but we know for a fact Trey Jones is out. And the offensive line, the musical chairs, right? It's just one guy after another after another. It's been a different starting five, guys, for every single game this season. Do you realize that? South Carolina has used a different starting five combo for all 8 games. There's no successful team in college football who does that. And it just goes to show the impact that injuries have had, that misses in the transfer portal have had, that poor play has had. This is a Jacksonville State football team, guys. I know it's their level of play. I know it's Conference USA, but they get after the quarterback. 26 sacks for JSU thus far. And they're led by a guy, a pair of guys off the edges in Chris Hardy and J-Rock Swain that are 2 of the best in Conference USA. Should South Carolina's offensive line be able to have success? You'd like to think so. You'd like to think Mario Anderson gets going. You'd like to think Spencer Rattler has time. But again, I don't think this is some walk in the park, guys. Like, I think Jacksonville State has a good enough pass rush to make Spencer Rattler uncomfortable. You got to make sure, whether it's Big True Babalade, it's Sidney Fugar, it's somebody else out there at the tackles, they've got to play solid football because I expect JSU to attack Spencer Rattler, to send pressure. And again, they've done a great job at getting after the quarterback. You got to keep QB1 upright. Now, moving to special teams, guys. I think the downfall and the demise of Kai Kroger has been overplayed. I do. Has Kai Kroger been bad? No, he has not been bad. He just hasn't been special like he was last year. And so that's why people are up in arms. What happened to Kai Kroger? Is he playing too much golf? Is he this? Is he that? Which, I think people are looking to make excuses or they want to blame something. You look at the numbers, guys. Kai Kroger has not been abysmal. I'm not saying he had a great game at Texas A&M. I'm not saying he had a great game in College Station, but I'll be keeping a close eye on Kai Kroger. And hopefully, guys, we don't see him a lot because that means the offense is going up and down the field. But I think the demise and the downfall or what have you of Kai Kroger, I just think it's overplayed. I think it's a bit overplayed. I don't think there's anything wrong with Kai Kroger. And the bigger issue, guys, is that he's being asked to kick so many punts, especially when you're on the road. So as much as we love Beamer ball, as much as we love special teams, as much as we love seeing Kai Kroger throw touchdown passes and hit 60-yard bombs, ideally, we don't see a lot of Kai Kroger Saturday. But if we do and when we do, I'll be keeping a close eye. But again, guys, I think the downfall, I think the demise is much, much exaggerated. I think it's over-exaggerated when it comes to Kai Kroger. Guys, you look at this game against Jacksonville State. Excuse me. And many people will look at this and identify this as an opportunity to, as an opportunity to play backups. Most notably getting a guy like Lenoris Sellers in the game, right? Getting some backup wide receivers or defensive players or whoever it might be. You look at this game you want to look at this game as an empty the bench type of game. Empty the bench. If I misspoke, I apologize. Empty the bench type of game. I don't know that it's going to be that. I really don't know that it's going to be that type of game for South Carolina because, guys, I understand the wanting to get a guy like Lenoris Sellers experience. I totally get that. But at the same time, I feel like you need to get your starters as much confidence as you possibly can. And you can say, oh, a game against Jacksonville State, it doesn't matter. Guys, any win right now matters. Any win. Any and every win is a good win. Just get a freaking win. I mean, guys, this is a team that went over in October. At some point, and I know the leadership on this football team is great, and they're going to keep their spirits high. They're going to remain joyous. That's fine. But it's human nature that doubt and all of this inevitably start to creep in. It's like, man, can we win a game? So I just think keeping guys out there, like, and again, if it's 49-0, well, that's a different story. But I don't know if I really see this as the ball game where, okay, well, let's take the starters out middle of the third quarter. Let's just get a bunch of backups in there. Now, granted, if you have the opportunity to do that, that's great. That's great because I think that gives the entire football team a lot of confidence and it makes everybody feel good. Right? Everybody had a good day. We all feel good about ourselves, what have you. But I don't know if the Gamecocks will get up by enough. And even if you do get a comfortable lead, like I think it's going to take a really comfortable lead to get a bunch of backups in there. Granted, right now you're playing a bunch of backups because of the amount of injuries you have, but you also need to focus on getting your starters confidence. And that brings me to this, guys. This game serving as a bit of a quote-unquote get-right opportunity, a chance to build momentum. That's what this game is. Above all else, that's what this game is. Whether South Carolina beats Jacksonville State by 10, by 14, by 21, by 30, the season was never about beating JSU. We know that. You know that. I know that. We all know that. But if you want to close out this season 4-0, right? You want to finish 6-6, which would be a big deal right now, guys. Give yourself a chance at a 7th win and finishing with a winning record and winning 5 in a row. Like what that would do for the morale and the feelings around Gamecocks football and the portal and recruiting. Like it'd be very big. It'd be a big deal. It starts with this ball game. It starts with just generating positive momentum, having something to feel good about, having a reason to have joy. Winning a game will help everyone find some joy, right? Then you stack that performance. You stack another good performance on top of that one. Then you have back-to-back wins. Guys, you haven't done that all year. You haven't won back-to-back games all year. It's the small victories. You start counting up these small victories, right? Then you go into Kentucky. Who knows what they are? Who knows when the kickoff time for that game is? And you're able to go into that Kentucky and that Clemson game with confidence, feeling good about yourself, with spirits high, morale high, and momentum built versus limping into the finish. Because, guys, one of these next two don't go your way, we're having a totally different conversation. It's a get-right opportunity. It's an opportunity to build momentum. When I say get right, I don't mean win by 40. That's not what I'm saying. But a win is a win is a win. It's an opportunity to win. It's an opportunity to get right. It's an opportunity to gain some confidence, to gain some momentum, and it's the first step in South Carolina having a shot at reaching bowl eligibility this season.